Hi, I'm Heather French Henry, the host of Heart of Gold, a monthly program whose mission is to highlight examples of what makes Louisville, Kentucky the most compassionate city in the world, as declared by Mayor Greg Fisher. This series features local nonprofit organizations of all shapes and sizes, which are working to improve the quality of life for all Louisville citizens. Thank you for joining us tonight, and special thanks to WHS TV for generously producing this series. This segment features Athenas Sisters. Athenas Sisters is the first and only nonprofit grassroots organization run by and for military women in Kentucky. Their slogan is Mind, Heart, and Body, Justice for all active duty and veteran women. Their mission is built upon creating greater access to mental and physical health care services, government and/or civilian, through education and artistic advocacy, with their partnerships and providers and supporters of active duty and veteran women. They are honored to have their CEO, we're honored to have their CEO and founder, Lindsay Gargado, here to talk about Athenas Sisters with us. Lindsay, welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's been a pleasure to work with you for some time now, certainly. So for our audience, tell them what Athenas Sisters is and how it got started.
Well, Athenas Sisters started, our technical date was January 27th of 2014, so we're not quite at 2 years yet. I am personally a veteran, and I was going through a lot of therapy for different traumas and things like that. And when I was doing it, I was alone, and I was pretty connected to the community, so I couldn't imagine what it was like for other women, particularly in rural areas, what it felt like for them. And so between all my educations and all the work I had done, it just kind of all fell into place at one time. Because I have a background in social work and creative writing, and I was able to go to school because of the military, so it's kind of a perfect fit. But really, I just wanted friends. I mean, that was the whole point. I just wanted an art meeting one night a month, and I thought that would be really cool. But from the very first meeting, I knew 2 women, and over 12 women showed up. And, you know, officers, enlisted, retired, active duty, you name it, we were all representative. Because a lot of times I don't think people give credit to how diverse military women really are. You know, we just kind of get lumped in a category. So at that meeting, I had gone in with the vision of Athenas Sisters and the Mind, Heart, and Body Justice. But it was pretty loose, and I had an idea of what I thought it could be, but I didn't know what everybody else wanted. But the women decided 2 things. They wanted to know more education about what was available to them in the community, whether it was about jobs, housing, education, physical, mental health care, all these things. And the other piece was they wanted to do the sisterhood. So they liked the idea of like us just getting together and doing art once a month. And so that's essentially how we started, was 2 meetings a month. And it is just, you know, from 12 women, we have reached over 250 women now in Kentucky and southern Indiana in our 2 years. And we have over 70 members now, almost 80. So we're just growing every day.
Well, share with me a little bit about women veterans. It's a population in Kentucky that numbers at about 24,000, which is nearly 10% of the total veterans population, which is unusually high for a state like Kentucky. And tell our audience, too, about some of the unique challenges that women veterans, that they have and that they go through.
A lot of what I see is, well, homelessness is the biggest issue that I've been working on, because like I said, even though our focus is mental and physical health care, if you're homeless, you're not going to be getting therapy. You know, I mean, that's just not a priority.
You have other barriers to overcome.
You know,
certainly.
you got to have like the basic needs met. And so there really aren't services just for military women who experience homelessness. And a lot of them don't fall in the categories of substance abuse. A lot of them don't have, you know, they might not be diagnosed with PTSD, but that doesn't mean they don't have the experience. So there's a real issue with that. Like, there's just women falling through the cracks. I think a lot of the services we have are great, but the criteria holds us back because our experiences look very different than a lot of the male experiences. We have a lot similar, but there are a lot of differences. Being a single mom, you know, when I got out of the military, I didn't even know I could go to the VA. I thought that was only for retired veterans. So a lot of that is a huge barrier right there, just getting veteran women to know that they're welcome to the VA. But
And
even
if they may have earned benefits that they're entitled to.
like compensation, all that stuff, I had no idea about when I got out.
Why do you think that there are women, of course we have some men that don't identify themselves as veterans as well, but why do you think that women have a particular problem or an issue identifying themselves with the word veteran?
Well, I think there's a couple levels there. One, if they did experience trauma, they're not ready to go there, because a lot of our trauma happens within the service. So, you know, our enemies are on the inside. The second part is this idea that you have to be retired to be a veteran, or the other idea is that you have to have been in combat to be a veteran. And just the, you know, you go to the VA and you're like, whose spouse are you? You know, I mean, it's just automatic. Like, we're never
Seen as and
yeah.
looked at as the initial veteran that's of concern.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, tell me about Athenas Sisters, your mission to, one, find your sisters out there in the community, how special that bond is, and some of your creative therapy, because you all do some amazing writing workshops.
Yes. Okay, what was the first part of that? Let's go back.
In identifying and finding your sisters out in the community.
Well, honestly, that has been the easiest part of it. I mean, it's really word of mouth. That's, you know, because there's a trust that's just kind of there already in the sisterhood that's unique compared to kind of what civilian women and how they form relationships. We automatically have something, because being a veteran is a value system. It's not just something you did, it's who you became. And so I think that carries over. A lot of times when we're trying to assimilate, it's never going to happen because it's shaped who we are now. So the women have been easy. Like, they just come, and the thing that we tried to make sure in the organization is that it wasn't a pressure, because women often feel pressured when they sign up to do things. Oh, I've got to bring food to that. Oh, I got, you know, they think it's the whole world. And our organization is really built on, you just come when you need it, and when it works in your schedule, there's an event that appeals to you. We don't turn anybody away. I don't need your DD-214. You don't have to be a member to come to the meetings, and all of our programming is free. So,
and you feed them too,
yes,
which
yes.
which I think
and
is
we have
incredible.
child programming, so I don't feel so guilty. You know, it's not even just child care. We have real child programming with our stuff, and so it's really just a great space. The creative part has been just, I mean, there's not even words. And as an artist, like, I can't even come to words with the beautiful stories that have come out of it. It's really about creative storytelling and helping the women understand that no matter what their story is, it matters and it's important. And it's important that they tell it in the way they want to.
Right.
I think a lot of women's narratives get shaped and kind of are forced into categories of this is what we want to hear. And many of them don't want to tell their story that way. And so, like, I have one member, Sally, she did a quilt. And I mean, she hand stitched it. And when she gave it to me, she said, this is how I tell my story. You know, I have other members who are much more visual arts. I have some that are now define themselves as writers when before they didn't. And, you know, with the trust fund, the KDVA trust fund, we really were able to make some significant moves in getting women's stories out.
And you've got a special publication now that tells those stories, right?
Yes, yes. We have a publication. It's called The Art or the Heart of Sisterhood. And we just published our second one, and it'll be released on November 5th at Carmichael's on Frankfurt Avenue at 7 o'clock. So we're really excited about that. The first one, I think I have 6 copies of 250 left. So they really went like that in the community. So it's just great. And that the most beautiful part is seeing the women's faces when they saw other people care about their stories, like what that meant to them, and to see it in such a, you know, vivid way. Because the magazines are very unique.
Well, and to be able to share in that capacity too. I mean, even to just each other, I think must be extremely powerful.
Oh, the workshops are beautiful. Because how we create the zine is just a one-day workshop. Because I think we overthink things a lot, and so I like this. I like shaping it where what's going on right here, right now in this space, and what is the story you want to tell. So the other powerful part is I don't edit them. I don't even change the punctuation. If it's misspelled, it's misspelled, because we're changing their voices. if we do that. So,
and that came from your experience, correct, in writing your story
Yeah.
and someone trying to reshape that.
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, and it could be really traumatic. And I think that's an important thing for the community to see. If a veteran is telling you a story, male or female, and it's their trauma, and you send it back to them and tell them it's wrong, you have to think of the consequences of what you're doing there. I think for those kinds of stories, the regular rules just don't work. You know, it's really important that people just tell it how they want to.
Well, tell me about your future vision for Athena Sisters. As you said, this started as sort of a gathering moment, a meeting of sisters together, and now it's grown into this very large organization. I know at the Kentucky Department of Veterans Affairs, we lean on you all for outreach to try to get the word out, and you all are such a valuable asset in the community because of all your sisters that are out there that don't know about their benefits. So what's your future now? You've gone from 12 to over 200.
Well, basically what's happened with the organization, by day, I play more of a role as a social worker. So I get individual women referred to me from the VA, from you all, from, you know, the healing place, wherever they might be. And I connect them to resources. We as an organization don't provide them because I believe there's already enough in the community. Some of them might just need some help or some education, or the women just need to know that they're there. So, so I work really hard to partner with as many people as possible, and really just build those bridges of where, you know, where the women are falling through the cracks. And so it's gotten bigger, the mental and physical health care, but that's our ultimate goal at the end, is the healing. But like we were talking about earlier, you can't, I mean, if you're worried about where you're going to sleep at night, like you're not going to be going through trauma therapy. So my vision now is very much changed. It's kind of overwhelming, but I really want to see chapters happen. We've already had a lot of people wanting that, but the tricky part with that is just building the leadership across the state.
And the oversight of something so large. But even we have discussed outside of the show about trying to figure out what veterans need in an urban setting and what they need in a rural setting, which can be a lot different between each other, and the resources are quite different as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was the beautiful part of our framework, right? Like we are grassroots, so Louisville, like what we have here, we're like in the mecca of services compared to the state of Kentucky. You know, I'm from Lexington in eastern Kentucky, and when I moved back to Lexington, there was not, you know, I didn't know anything, but that they have the power to really shape what we have an umbrella, but they have the power to shape whatever it is in their community. They might be working on mammogram access. I don't know, they could be working, they might want to focus more just on the art. You know, it just really depends on what each community needs. But, you know, it's building that leadership and outreach. You know, we're busy.
Well, if women veterans are out there watching, or someone knows a female veteran out there that wants to get in touch with you, how should they go about getting in touch with you all?
Well, we just redid our website, and it's a lot more engaging. So I'm really excited about that. It actually looks professional. You know, it's not so grassroots looking, but it's just www.athenasisters.us. Just one word, and people are always welcome to call me or email me. All that information is on the website. We also have a Facebook and a Twitter and all that, so we try to keep up with as much as we can in the community.
Excellent. Lindsay, thank you so much. Thank you for your service to our country and for what you do for your fellow sisters. It has been an honor to work with you. And again, if you would like to be a part of Athena Sisters or find out more about Athena Sisters, log on to www.athenasisters.us. This segment features Flags for Vets. Flags for Vets is a national Flag for Veterans Graves program. They raise funds to purchase flags for veterans' graves and then recruit volunteers to place those flags on the graves. Their director, Fred Moore, is here to tell us a little more about the wonderful work they do on behalf of veterans, and a Marine himself, Semper Fi. Fred, that's right. As a daughter of a Marine, I certainly appreciate your service. Flags for Vets is a very unique program, and it's something that a lot of people can be involved in doing and helping with. So tell me about how Flags for Vets got started, and we'll go from there.
Well, 9 years ago, there was a cemetery in Louisville that wasn't putting these flags on veterans' graves for Veterans Day. And I thought, we can fix that. So 9 years later, we put flags in 42 states last year.
Wow. Now, how many flags does that?
It's got to be a quarter
take?
of a million.
How do you do that?
Well, the hardest part of this process, as you know from as being a veteran of all kinds of different wars, is fundraising.
Right.
Once we get the money to buy flags, I've found that the thing that I thought was going to be the most difficult, which is recruiting volunteers, turned out to be very simple.
Well, don't you think that being able to get volunteers from the community helps them to understand it can be an intergenerational project? You get kids, you
Yes.
get civic groups. It's something that they can do. It's a way for them to give back.
Sure, some of the photos that you'll be seeing in a few minutes are photos of kids at the cemetery. And I think of a cemetery where we're working as being a classroom. It is a chance for grandma and grandpa to tell stories that they probably wouldn't come out in the normal everyday conversation. But when they're standing in a cemetery where some of their brothers and sisters are buried, thoughts come back to them and they want to share.
Tell me why, a lot of people ask us all the time when we talk about flags for graves, that why doesn't the government provide the flags for all these graves?
That question was the first question I asked, and I realized I was never going to get an affirmative answer. They're going to flag graves in federal cemeteries, but there are 3 million veterans' graves. Only a fraction of them are in federally funded, federally cared for cemeteries. So it's the other 75% of the graves that I have to worry about, and it's flagging those graves that keeps me awake at night.
And tell me how you flag those graves. Where do you get these flags? Where are they made?
Well, these flags are made there are only 2 companies that make a flag that's of this quality in the U.S. They're made in Wisconsin or Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So only 2 companies.
Yes.
And what makes these flags special?
Well, it's probably pretty easy, even on television, to see that this dowel is pretty thick compared to the flags you might buy at Walmart or other places. Also, the bottom of the dowel is pointed, which makes it easier to push it into the ground.
Okay.
Because it's really important that overnight these flags don't blow down because of the wind.
And we experienced helping you put some of these flags up when you graciously donated your time and your volunteers to come out to the Vietnam Wall at the Kentucky Horse Park.
Sure.
And we created this wonderful flag field, sort of a healing field, if you will, around the Vietnam Memorial. And these are very strong flags. And we got every single person who was there, either visiting the wall or there for one of our ceremonies, to help place these flags in the ground.
People
and they still
love
talk
it.
to that.
Yeah, we have no shortage of volunteers, and that doesn't mean that I'm not recruiting vigorously for more volunteers.
Right, because you've got an event coming up
Sure.
actually on November 7th.
Yes, on November 7th at Cave Hill Cemetery at 11 o'clock, we'll be flagging 7,000 veterans' graves right here in Louisville. And these flags are waiting for people to come out and help me put them in the ground.
And what time do you need them there?
I need them there just a little bit before 11.
A little bit before 11,
We're
and on
parking-
the Payne Street side, correct?
Yes, we'll be
Okay.
parking at Breckenridge Franklin Middle School on Payne Street and entering through the gate into the cemetery. It's a very short walk. It's handicap friendly, kid friendly. It actually, I guess fun is a difficult word to use, but I see kids having fun putting flags on graves.
I think kids really love when there's a mission and a physical activity to go with it.
Yes.
And I think that's what we found in going through schools and going through the community. When you want to encourage younger generations to learn more about patriotism, if you give them something to do, they enjoy doing that, and they've got the energy to do it.
Absolutely, and the knees that can go near the swamp at the cemetery.
That is true. That is true. How do you fund getting these flags?
We've had 3 generous donations this year. The KDVA Veterans Trust Fund funded 12,000 flags for us. Humana funded about 20,000 flags for us. And all the rest of the flags are donated by little $5 donations.
And at the wall, I remember you saying there were a few flags from every time you put a flag out that don't always survive for
Yes.
Every single moment that you put them in the ground. But every single flag that you had put there had flown on the grave
Correct.
of a veteran.
Yes, every one of our flags, I want its first purpose to be flagging a veteran's graves. Now, a lot of people didn't think that we could create flag fields that weren't involved in being in cemeteries at all, like in a public place. There were people that when I first started said, that won't work because you don't have those graves. But that's been entirely wrong. Memorial Day weekend, we put out about 20 or 25,000 of these flags in Louisville down on the Great Lawn, spelling out the letters USA. And just the U and the S are the size of a football field.
Oh, and here's our picture right now.
Yes.
And you're saying where the circle is, that's an actual family, so that shows the magnitude of how large that is.
Yes, and those flags, as many as there are, we have plenty of volunteers, and over a 3-day period that slowly start to fill those in. I have learned how to go out with a chalk machine and trace the letters.
Wow, that's an impressive feat for such a large space. And I know when you came into the wall and we had a very open space, we were able to give people a little bit of free range to place them as they felt they needed to be placed. Now, you're in 42 states. So how did you ever dream that this would become such a large mission for you? No,
or I probably wouldn't have done it. I thought we'd flag a couple cemeteries, but I started building relationships with junior ROTC programs across the country. And they're kind of like the bees that come to the hive, get the flags, and get out there and do the bees' work.
How do you get the flags? Because they're housed here in Kentucky, correct? How do you get the flags across the country?
There are 3 ways. One of them is that we go to Camping World and Good Sam RV rallies, national rallies where 3,000 or 4,000 RVs come in, and we'll have them deliver flags to places for us. So we have really good relationships with that organization. Also, I go to a lot of motorcycle rallies, and when I'm at a Harley dealership, I'll give a biker a bundle of 100 flags and we'll say, here's where they need to go. And you get them there.
Wow, talk about on-the-road participation.
Exactly,
certainly.
grassroots.
Now, you just returned from Florida from an event down in Daytona.
Sure, Biketoberfest is a large motorcycle rally in Daytona that draws in just thousands and thousands of people from other places. And we were hosted at the Harley dealership in Daytona Beach. And we were able to raise enough money to buy probably another 7,000 or 8,000 flags.
So in total across the country, how many flags would you need to flag?
If I did them,
if you did them all, outside of the state and federal cemeteries.
Okay, if I did them all, you know, I just turned 66, and I thought, you know, I've got another 20 years to kill. So I asked myself this question. I knew you were going to ask me anyhow. How long would it take, and how would we do it? Well, we would need probably $300,000 worth of flags.
Wow.
And we could do it for $300,000. We could put flags on graves that have never been flagged.
And tell people why that's important to do. Because when we talk about paying honor, and we talk about $300,000 worth of flags, why is that important?
Well, it's important to everyone because this is the flag of our country. No matter where you came from, this is your flag. And the people who are in those veterans' graves were committed to protecting this flag and you, no matter what it cost them. If it cost them everything, they would pay that price.
And we were talking before the show, just from your position as a veteran, what you did in service, this sort of makes you kind of perfect for this role, because this is a very emotional role that you're in.
Sure, I was a medical corpsman with the United States Marine Corps. And in that capacity as a medic, I think I'm still taking care of the troops.
That's what we call our forever care, right?
Yes. I see myself going until somebody finds me laying sideways in the cemetery holding a flag.
So how can people get involved? What about, aside from corporations and people who can give large grants, how can individuals make a difference even other than volunteering? How can they contribute?
Well, our website, which we've had, is pretty well developed now. We've had it for 9 years, is flagsforvets.com. And that's the number 4 or the word 4. We have both of those names. And you go to that website, take a look at what we're doing. What I want more than money is you to come out and put flags on graves. But if you can put a few dollars down toward that 600,000 flags I need, I'd appreciate it.
Because honestly, for even a few dollars, that buys multiple flags.
Yes.
So
the flags are 53 cents each when you buy 20,000 at a time.
So a little bit can go a long way.
Yes. In fact, too far, because I had 20,000 flags delivered to my house and found out they don't bring them up the driveway.
Oh, so you had
So
to
I had to take my
transport those.
tractor down and haul 20,000 flags up the driveway.
That, and I probably think that you're in dire need of a new van too. So I think you could probably take other donations too, other than flags, right?
I'd like someone to adopt our 95 Dodge Ram van. and we need a gas gauge. We're just guessing now. Someday I'm not going to get to the cemetery because I'm going to run out of gas.
Well, let's think really big and hope that one day that someone will deliver a van to your doorstep along with where your flags are. So, Fred, thank you so much for everything that you do. And I really think that one of our major initiatives in spreading the word about patriotism is to allow opportunities for the public and for civilians to get involved. And so many times they want to and they want to make a difference, they just don't know how. And you've provided a way that's interactive, that's intergenerational, and that people can become involved in, because when they get involved, then they become vested in that, and then they start that conversation and they start understanding. Because as I say, it's not a political issue, it's an American issue, and it's our responsibility to take care of those who have served our country, and this is yet one way that we can do that.
That's right, and I want to thank WHAS for they've been with us almost from the get-go, maybe from the get-go. And even the guys on these cameras and in this room, they don't think about it, but they're putting flags on graves right now. So they don't get that part of it. They're here doing, public service is real important. We all know that. But every time someone helps me get a flag, that's them putting that flag on a grave.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Fred, for everything you do. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
for your service to our country, and Semper Fi to you.
You too. Hoorah.
Certainly, that's right, that's right. And to get involved again with Flags for Vets, and if you want to honor the men and women who served our country, made the ultimate sacrifice, feel free to log on to www.flagsforvets.com. I'm Heather French Henry, and thank you for joining us for Heart of Gold.